And I was like, oh, yeah, well, it's not that I say directly. It's like a million and one other things.
Yeah,
That,
that's what we love about you.
yeah, well, you know,
It's so
5 hours
It's
later.
it's so pomai. Yeah, there might be stuff you want to edit out too, because you know me.
I know. I'm looking forward to
I'm so
this.
blunt and straightforward, so you might want to edit out certain portions for your sake.
Well, for the sake of introductions, could you please give yourself like a quick little something about yourself?
Yeah. So I'm Justin. A lot of people call me Coach Konia. Working with Pomai for a while at UFC. How many years was that? Maybe six, seven years, something like that. Kind of like my bigger brother. So I've been, learned a lot from him, and kind of branched out on my own. I'm known for building glutes with females here in Hawaii, but I do full body, back the arms, tummy, and glutes. It was just kind of the niche that I developed here, and here I am reconnecting with my brother.
Which, for the record, I'm so happy that you're still using the same icon I made for you.
I love it. That's right. He actually made that for me as kind of like a joke, and that's one of the things that people always compliment me on to this day. They're like, "I love your logo," and that's right. Pomai created it for me.
Because I remember the picture, and then gosh, what did it? There was something else. What was the shirt that you were wearing with it?
It kind of had like a under construction,
right,
pointing down to the glutes, and then so I kind of saw this like Batman logo that somebody had created with the glutes, and you went ahead and superimposed it on a picture that I did like that, like a funny picture, and you kind of just created that for me, which is awesome. So yeah, I still use it to today, and people always compliment me on it. They love that logo.
Oh man,
yeah.
No, I'm super happy for you.
Thank you so much.
So one of the things we were kind of talking before we had the start is obviously you're still a trainer. You're which, for the record, and I think this is part of today's discussion, is it's like trying to be a trainer in Hawaii during COVID, because as much experience that we've had being trainers, like there are so many things that it's like, well, they didn't teach us this in NASM, they didn't sure as hell teach us this in coaching onboarding. Like, we're really trying to come up with like this X value equation that nobody really knows, and so far you've been handling it very well. So I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about some of your successes.
Gotcha.
Off of that, and whatever casual stuff we just kind of bring up past that.
Okay.
So, tell me, because we connected back in a few weeks into March.
Yep.
When this thing started.
Yep.
And you were helpful about kind of promoting some of like the videos and putting me into tags, and we would kind of go tag back and forth.
Yep.
Which, for the record, thank you for saying that I'm tech savvy, but I am not IG savvy.
Gotcha.
Like, this is all new to me, and the likes and the follows and the subscribes were something like I wasn't aware of, but all of a sudden now it's like, oh crap, like, speaking of that X factor stuff, like how to be successful now. And it was like, okay, that's an option to be successful as far as trying to keep your career and stuff going on this side. What's been kind of, maybe talk about some of your successes before, because you've always been a little bit more on the social media savvy, and maybe you just ramped it up to 11, or I'm not sure. Like, what was kind of some of the stuff for that for you?
Yeah. So I'll backtrack, just kind of give a more context for your viewers. So prior to this, when I was still at UFC working side by side with you, I noticed that the female demographic tend to spend more money in the gym. When I kind of gave males my rate, a lot of times they kind of felt like they got it, or maybe they weren't really ready to invest in themselves yet. Whereas for females, they don't flinch when you tell them, it's $200 to color your hair, $100 for your nails, $100 for your lashes. So I kind of went from a more, health and beauty side to things, I did reach out. Oops, you okay? I did reach out.
Speaking of glutes.
Yeah, speaking of glutes are out of control right now, buddy.
They're so involved.
so oh my. So
I'm now just gonna grab the seat with them.
I think it's gonna be great content.
We're stable.
Bloopers. You gotta add this in here.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, no. So for for females, they tend to invest in their health and their beauty. So I kind of decided to make that more of my market because I tried, everything. We got certified in a million different things, trying to figure out what kind of trainer I want to be. So I actually niched myself. I told the guys at the front desk, hey, if they're females, they want to work on their glutes, please send them my way. And I kind of just really studied. There wasn't a lot of material on just glutes. There's a glute guy, Brett Contreras. So I started buying every program that he had, any type of equipment he came up with. I really, really studied what he did, and then I tried to make it my own. And so I reached out to a bunch of, influencers here in Hawaii, females that had a good following, because, I was still so brand new. I didn't know how I was going to get my message out there that I wanted to work the glutes and not be like a weirdo, right? So I was able to get some really, really great influencers come in, and how you're talking about tags, I would tag them, in a video of us working out, and then they would go ahead and have those eyes on their followers. So I kind of started really grassroots like that. From there, I decided to, mix in some of the boxing stuff. I noticed that a lot of females, they're really scared at first to punch.
Yeah,
but those very ones were the ones that were hitting me the hardest. I was like, wow, who hurt you? Kind of thing, and they just loved it. So as the years progressed, I slowly decided to do kind of like booty boxing, blending my two passions together. And those classes were amazing for me. I feel like groups as a trainer is the way to go. Sometimes the one-on-one training can get expensive, especially here in Hawaii. So I found that groups were a little bit more affordable. And then I don't know about you, but a lot of women get intimidated by me. They kind of see me and they think like, oh my gosh, like he's gonna kill me. Especially you, you're big. So, a lot of women probably like, oh my goodness, right?
I'm gonna Photoshop the crap out of it.
You do have to.
Fix that.
Yeah. So for me, I found that word of mouth here in Hawaii is probably your best marketing. So I told my female, like, hey, bring a friend to class with you. You know what I mean? I think you'll love it and create that kind of community. So what I found is that a community trumps anything else, even price, right? Why do we buy the iPhone? Because of the value to it. Because my MacBook and my Apple Watch is attached to it. If I lose my community, I don't know where my schedule is going to be. So I kind of created that where they empower each other, they hype each other up, they add each other on Instagram, and now they're liking each other's photos. So I think a lot of people honestly now don't even come for my classes, they come for each other, and I'm fine with it, you know what I mean? So that's what I did social media wise, and like you said, I vamped it up. So going into that first lockdown, I had actually branched out and became an independent contractor, so I was subleasing a space, and we're actually in Waikiki, so we're one of the first to get shut down. And so it was totally like, what do we do? Is March 17th. I got a text, hey, we're closing down. I had to mass text everybody and be like, hey, I got you guys whenever we open up. I have no idea. This should be, a couple of weeks. And then, like you said, months went by. And so I was like, we have to pivot. So I was like, all right, let's do some of the sloth bands. So my booty band company, and let's try to do online training. And so in the first month, online training was going through the roof. I couldn't make enough spots for clients. And that was just, like you said, a blend of marketing and a blend of the fact that people don't have access to a gym. But I mean, maybe we'll talk about this more later. But as the months went on, I noticed that the numbers got smaller and smaller. It got harder and harder for me to get people to adhere to an online training program. I had to learn the difference between training somebody in person where there's accountability and me counting the reps versus me trusting that they're gonna do the reps that I prescribe. So I'm still learning how to do that to this day, to be honest. But like I said, it was a lot of mix of just trying to market harder on social media, trying to get other coaches involved as well too, so we could collab. So put a thing out there, if you're a local personal trainer, if you have any workouts that you want to share with the community, one, people at home will have something to do, and two, maybe we can get some eyes on your business. So that was kind of the model we went with, and and honestly, it worked really, really well for us. I mean, we saw numbers that we've never seen ever, like 7, 8, 9x, 10x times amount of sales. So I think it was kind of a win for everybody, because I do know there's a few coaches that did pick up some new clients, which I was so happy for them. And that's kind of what we did. Even with us reopening, we kind of kept that same business model, except that people that were scared of me did my online workouts and like, oh, he's not that bad. You know what I mean? I thought his workouts were going to be really, really tough. I did his online workouts, so maybe I can do his workouts in person. And so actually, especially with the second opening up, we have a lot of people that want to train, and I'm surprised. I'm thinking that more people are going to be scared of COVID, but like I said, I think the fact that they kind of feel like they know me because they're doing my online stuff kind of led to them being more comfortable coming in, because you know how it was where, or maybe it's the fact that we took away the gym, because women want what they can't have, right? So maybe it's that, a blend of that. They're like, oh, you telling me I can't have the gym, I want the gym now. So I don't know if it's a blend of two, but either way, I'm just gonna keep swimming, I guess, is what the best model can be, and hopefully that kind of answered your question. I know it's kind of a longer version, but
no, it's a complex question, and I think for every coach, because I think if I had to flip that onto myself, even though I've probably leaned more towards bodybuilding, powerlifting-esque workout routines, which all imply weights, like
right.
You're not getting away from resistance, weight resistance, heavy crap. And like while that fits me and my persona of who I am as a trainer, as much, and that it started leading me kind of into a depression when we went into the first week of it, because I knew that I needed to do something. You know what I mean? And so I was kind of like, okay, let's try this online thing and try to talk to people, inside that side. And I was tech savvy enough with all my spreadsheets and all this other crap. Right. I shouldn't call it crap. It's actually very useful crap.
No, I saw it. I was like, whoa.
But part of the thing is, it was kind of like me talking to it, and here's my equation. Now we're gonna do it at home. And over the past decade, why would I have ever thought to have a gym at home if all I've been doing is working in gyms,
right.
For most of my life? Right. So I was inside the same boat of, okay, well, let's grab this dowel pin and a few 10-pound weights, and I'll just do reps until oblivion to get it. Right. And so as I'm doing these things, I couldn't really kind of get my passion behind it. Yes. Because that's not what I was about. And so, while as much as I was kind of enjoying sharing some of it, I never really felt it was me. And the more so what I felt was me was because, once again, I was still retentive about taking my body fat, looking at my weight, and I was like, everything's going down. Everything's going in a direction that I don't think anybody would have called me unhealthy. Right. But it wasn't what I do. Yeah. I think I ended up dropping down to into the 180s. Wow. Yeah, low 180s. Yeah. During the first break of it, and my body fat started kind of shooting up. And I think as an athlete, like that starts picking on you. Yes. And there was something I've always kind of wanted to ask you. Well, I'll circle around to this, because when I first met you, you were a pro fighter. Yes. Yeah. And then, now obviously years later, you're not. Yep. And as much as I would still never want to mess with you, there's obviously an evolution of how that is inside your persona, of how you kind of take this on. Yep. You know what I mean? Yep. I felt it. I can explain it, but it's I kind of want your perspective off of it too. Yeah. So long story short, I got super depressed in the first breakdown. Yep. I think I tell people, which was the truth, my feet probably touched the pavement about 5 times, outside of my house. That's as far as I went. Yeah. Yep. So I never really had an out. So it just got my brain kind of stewing in a lot of negativity and for what you call it. And I think that's going to be another big thing of, I think they start calling it COVID stress. They have a term for it finally? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, no, yeah, like exactly what you said, I've also experienced. I mean, especially that first month, and I was very nervous and scared about it. I had anxiety. I'm like, what is this COVID thing? I have no idea what it is. So, the weight gain
the not being able to work out, and also to my identity, because for 10 years I'm Coach Konia. Who am I now? I'm just a guy in the house. You know what I mean? And so that also, video games. Talking about video games, I bought a PlayStation the very first day when I got the text message like, hey, we're locked down. I'm like, what am I gonna do in the house? Bought a PlayStation.
Oh wait, so you didn't have that before?
I did not. I took a 6 year hiatus from playing games.
Kind of, but you and me, we would play
on the phone.
Vainglory.
On the phone. That's only because I was working with you guys and I was like bonding. But even with that game, I don't have great time management. I know you texted me about that, so I will get really into being in the next level or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I'll forget to do what I need to do as a coach. So I actually had to put the games on the side for a bit because I didn't have that self-discipline. So actually, and that's still something I have to work with now, because I actually started with a PlayStation. Now I have a gaming PC. That's how much that evolution has happened for me, because now I want the fastest game, and that becomes like a whole rabbit hole in itself. But it was a distraction, I think, from the fact that, hey, I can't do what I love to do and what I'm used to doing, which is training people in person, because honestly the online training isn't the same. I missed that in person pushing somebody through the workout. So I think it was a lot of that loss of identity, the fact that, like I said, if I'm not Coach Kuno, who am I, right? And then two, it's like, I'm not even training myself, so I don't feel great about myself. At least if I'm in the gym, I can get workouts in. And no, how you said, I don't train as hard as I used to, because the wear and tear of my body and my job requires a lot of energy. I'm putting it to everybody else. So it's kind of like the chef, right? He's cooking food all day. The last thing he wants to do is go home and cook a meal for himself, kind of thing, right? Too, right? So there's a lot of that. But for me, it's like, I gained a lot of weight, and I gained it in places that I've never gained before prior to this, especially because I'm not lifting heavyweight. It's definitely the epitome of the dad bod. So luckily the dad bod is in right now. But
there's a pendulum with it.
That's also a niche. But it was kind of just weird too, because then when they started to open us back up again, my friend had a barbecue for us and 4 others for his daughter's birthday. And it was kind of really awkward, because we were waiting for the first one to take off their shirt, and I saw my friend kind of getting a lot of weight. All right, I'm cool. Yeah, I'll take off my shirt too. I let that, my belly hang out. But I just had never been, I never looked like that in the mirror before. My weight didn't fluctuate too much, but that's the bad part, is because I have fat where muscle used to be, and I'm still working on getting that weight back off still. But yeah, like you said, that led to a lot of depression. That led to me distracting myself with the games and with the alcohol. We have our friends on Call of Duty or whatever, and the loser has to take a shot, and it's like 3 p.m. But who cares, because we don't have work tomorrow. You know what I mean? Or for the next week. So there was kind of no consequence to that. So for me, looking back on that, and when everything opened back up again, I was like, hey, you always wish that you could have all the free time in the world, but it's like, what would you really do with it? And for me, after that first lockdown, I really realized, wow, I do really enjoy training people, but also too, I do value my time, because it was nice to actually go to the beach. So once they opened the beaches, right, I actually went to the beach, and I don't think I went to the beach for a year, because I'm always in the gym, right? If you look at my skin, people are like, are you even from Hawaii, right? Because I'm always indoors. So I got to actually do things that usually tourists only get to do, right? Waikiki was empty, so going down there and eating at some of the restaurants that I would never have gone to, because there was nobody around. It made me realize I need to find that balance too, because you know how the grind is here. When we helped open up Waikele, we're doing 12-hour days, 7 days a week, and to the point where Carrier or some of the admin had to put mandatory breaks in our calendar, because we're just on that grind. I learned I need to find that balance. So I went from doing nothing to trying to make sure that I don't overload my calendar. So it's about finding that balance. But I really related to you when you said that you're feeling kind of down and out. Just the fact that you couldn't lift it heavy, because you can only lift so many sandbags, do it yourself sandbags, right? You're putting water bottles in a backpack. That was cool the first month. The second month, not so cool. You know what I mean? And trying to still be creative and kind of keep it upbeat for my online clients. That was a big struggle, because I know even for them, financially, maybe they're not used to having that kind of loss in income. So even for me to kind of put the same value on the training, I felt like Some people were like, just like screw it, screw my health. You know what I mean? I'm just gonna eat whatever and drink whatever because I can't work out anyways. I kind of saw that trending, and I'm not trying to get political, but I didn't really see a big push on, hey, we should be working out in our home. We should be eating our fruits and veggies because if you do catch COVID, the best defense is going to be your health, not a mask. I didn't really see that push happening. So I was kind of more like, people were like, hey, I'm going to stay away from everybody. I'm going to wear a mask. But I didn't really see that push. And actually they did a study and they showed that Hawaii had some of the highest alcohol sales during that first lockdown.
I think it's a nationwide problem, you know, because correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not a genius on any of this, but it's like alcoholism is just as much as a social issue as far as trying to solve for it as much as it is a medical condition, right?
Yep.
So, you know, for me, I'm fortunate in the sense that because I have alcohol dehydrogenase, I'm allergic to alcohol, period.
Yep.
Oh yeah, you remember these stories.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not so funny in the retrospect. But anyhow, yeah, so that wasn't an issue for me for a lot of my life, even though I've become very socially awkward, and this is what you get from it. But I know that that's a big issue. I wouldn't really kind of say like the whole not endorsing exercise versus mask is a political statement. I think the reality of it is it just wasn't talked about.
Yep.
You know, and I think some of the irony is when you saw a lot of whoever was the state health directors anywhere, it was like either they were extremely like they were morbidly obese or they were like gaunt.
Right.
And so, and I think that's something that reflects on trainers, as it's always reflected on trainers, is the fact that first of all, you need to practice what you preach.
Yep.
Right? Because if you're not looking the part and playing the part,
yes,
you are part of your own best billboard. And to me, that kind of started playing against with me and my psyche, because it was like, I don't really feel compelled to have to do like another show again. But at the same time, I like to be in that ballpark of that nobody really ever questions me that I didn't do that.
Right.
And, you know, to me, it's like I like the strength. This is actually a philosophy that I've always been kind of carrying on. So it's the goals of what somebody is trying to do in fitness. You have like your health, just being better healthy, you know, and that's your goal. I find that it was kind of speaking to like the clientels, like you worked with the booty girls. I think a lot of my clients that usually stuck with me are like the 40-plussers, you know, and people that they just have maybe like chronic bad backs, bad knees. They have a goal that usually revolves somewhere around fat loss, but they are more concerned about just being healthy in general than having to be up on a bodybuilding stage. You know what I'm saying? So let's call that like one pull of the trifecta. Then you have the athletic side, right? And athletic side would be somebody that, like you, like the goal is to get ready for an MMA match, or the goal is to lift the most amount of weight, right? Or whatever that is that we watch on TV and we see the games and all that other stuff, right? Which is weird. Did you see when ESPN was just airing, it was like NBA Jam or something like that? I was like, what? Is that where we're down to?
Yeah.
It was weird.
It was
weird.
It was.
So, but that's the athletic component. And then the last one, which is kind of like where I wouldn't say like you exist per se. I don't call these things like you have to be 100% in each pull, but is the aesthetic side. Like bodybuilding would fall under as an aesthetic sport. Like nobody cares what you bench, it's that do you have abs and big biceps and all that type of stuff. Right? So this is where everybody kind of lives, and I think what happened was that we all should be focused on health. You know, let's kind of forego whatever these two other things are, because this one still should be paramount. You know what I mean? For me, it hurt me more because aesthetically I was falling behind where I was.
Yep.
You know, regardless if dad bods are the acceptable acceptable thing at the moment. But then it was also the athletic thing, because it was like I could do 1,001 push-ups, but it's never going to get my bench better. Or and so I've always tried to live somewhere closer on the down part, I guess, of the triangle. But like, if I'm chasing those two things, obviously I'm still being healthy in a lot of different regards. And so to me, I think it's not so much a statement, it's just the fact that how people view health in general is off. And especially during COVID, I kind of make the martial art analogy in the sense that, look, I did a lot of martial arts for years in different degrees and whatnot. But it's not like I want to test myself and just go pick a fight with some guy down the road.
Right.
You know, any more than like I feel that people should be training up their immunity to get better, with the hopes that you never really actually need to test it up against COVID.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Or any other disease.
Or any other thing.
Right.
Any other thing.
Right.
So, I think it doesn't really. This really shouldn't be a political thing.
Gotcha.
If anything, I think the politics of the world in the U.S. has aided to the COVID stress as a whole. As a whole.
I think the reason why I said political is because I do feel like gyms got targeted. That's the reason why I said it. We were one of the first industries taken out, as far as you guys are gonna close first. I feel like we were almost like the scapegoat. Like, they're saying that we were a hotbed or a hot zone for the spread of COVID. I was actually working with F45 prior to the second lockdown, and they were actually targeting group classes. So for me, that's why I would say that maybe a little political, because if you actually knew fitness, right, in a group class, I can tell you where to stand. I can tell you, this is your equipment, this is your box, you know what I mean? And I can kind of control that social distancing. Whereas in a standard gym, if they want to go after gyms, somebody can stay on one piece of equipment, they can sweat on it or whatever. I can't really tell them like, hey, your time is up, like move on to the next, equipment. So I feel like if they had some sort of strong background in fitness, they would have saw that group training is actually the way you want to go first if you want to tier it, right? You do a group training and then you open it up to open workouts. That's just my thoughts as seeing as a personal trainer, is that you can control group. I can tell exactly where to go for how long and shift you around so that you guys have your space. So that's why when I was talking about political, that was something that I had seen with the reopening, and still even with these tiers, that group classes and gyms like like I said, like a F45 were targeted early on for whatever reason. So that's why I was kind of saying it may be I don't know if it's political or whatever it is, but it's policies from the top down to us telling us like, hey, group training is bad. And it's like, actually, I personally think, and you may disagree, that it may be actually safer for you because you have an instructor telling you where you should be at, at what time, you know what I mean? So that's the reason why I kind of said it may have been a political thing. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'll be straight as far as at least the facts that I know that was stated, even from the people that are kind of dictating a lot of the rules that we have to, and policies that now we have to adjust our gym focus to, right? So, kind of going back to it, after the first lockdown, it was one person. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
One person from the mainland that came down for an online or a training session over at Lake Hawaiian, I believe it was, and they infected 2 gyms.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was the only contact traced knowledge of any infection. And I don't know who the 2 gyms were, but my understanding was they cleaned up. Nuked the place with disinfectant,
right?
And they were open the next day,
right? Yeah.
So it was like handled, right? Even going by the guidelines that they set.
Right.
So there really hasn't been, we haven't seen the type of check-in numbers that we saw like in the good old days of here. But you're still talking like what, maybe in the area of Kaka'ako. Let's just kind of spitball here. How many different workout places are there? Kakako Fitness.
Yep.
There's us. There's
the Orange Theory down there.
Orange Theory. Maybe like Anytime.
Yeah, Anytime just opened up over here, right?
Right down the road.
Yeah. I mean, I would guess 10, less than 10.
Maybe even more, because there's probably like little
10.
small
small
studios.
boutique kind of things, right?
Yeah. So let's assume that there's, I'm obviously nobody's as big as UFC Honolulu in the area, but let's assume that maybe everybody's doing like, I don't know, a couple hundred, 300-ish workouts of people coming in through the day.
Yep.
Right? Just from that math, that's like 3,000.
Yep.
And that's just inside the Kakako area.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So you start branching that out, and you only have like one person out of, now let's say every gym and athletic place inside the entire state of Hawaii,
mm-hmm.
right? That is arguably statistically the best handling of the situation. Like Costco, Hawaii Kai doesn't even have that
mm-hmm.
situation. I'm not trying to knock on Costco. I mean,
right.
they're seeing a much larger volume of people, but we're at a point that at least we can kind of manage some of these things better.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you want my opinion, kind of talking about the group class setup, I believe I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
Though I'm agreeing with you because you're a smart person.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of one of the issues.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is that we'd like to think that everybody is handling this great.
Right, yep.
And unfortunately, I think it's really kind of by person,
yep.
what you call it. And for me, it's like, I'm no longer a director,
mm-hmm.
like I was, and I can tell you when the shutdown first happened and then we reopened the first time, yeah, I could say that we were dealing with, and I don't know if this was the same for you,
mm-hmm.
like, there's a decent amount of Karens, and
yeah.
there was a decent amount of Kens.
Yes.
There was, in my opinion, I blame that a little bit more on just the whole COVID frustration.
Yeah.
I think the media wants to blame it on a side,
yeah.
but I just feel it's just one of those things that, well, you ramped up everybody's stress levels to 11, and hurt people. They come out, they just want to take it out on other people.
100%.
And the gyms are like a target for it, you know what I mean?
Yep.
But I also look at it, it's like being a public gym, we've always had those issues, right? When haven't you had to remind somebody to put their weights away? When haven't you had to remind somebody to wipe down their equipment? You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's just always going to exist.
Yep.
So to me, it's like the whole mask stuff was just one more policy thing. It really wasn't that big of a deal, more than what people were making it out to be.
Yep.
But yeah, sure, had to handle it a little bit more than
than
usual.
Definitely.
But I don't have the math on it, but maybe it was like 1% of people I always had to talk to, and then maybe it's like 5% now.
Right.
Like the second time around, though, I think that part of the things that at least I noticed,
mm-hmm.
and maybe you notice the same, is the people that are coming to the gyms, like, they want to.
Yes.
They have kind of rolled all the things we've just talked around,
mm-hmm.
and they're like, wow, yeah, I just like going to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
I got things to do, I got, what you call it. And so I don't find myself really having to be super anal retentive. People are just like, yeah, it is what it is.
Yep.
So I don't want things to shut down
exactly
again.
Exactly that. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So I don't see a big problem, but I definitely agree that I think we got put under a much stronger microscope.
We did.
Than usual.
Yeah, I really feel like gyms and bars even were being kind of the scapegoat for this thing, where I feel like they should have been less targeting towards us, because like you said, you brought up Costco and that Costco's and Walmart's. I don't even want to go in there sometimes because it's just jam packed, So you just have to make it make sense, right? If you're gonna make a policy against gyms, why not carry that across the board? That's kind of why I said, I don't know if it's a political thing or whatever it is. These policies, that I think might also add to some of the stress that some of the trainers and gym owners especially are feeling, is like, why is a Walmart and why is a Costco allowed to not basically follow the rules? Whereas for us, we're basically going above and beyond. Even the measures that you guys are prescribing to us, I know gyms that have gone even further than that, you know what I mean? Because they didn't really have like set guidelines. Like, for example, each gym must have X amount of hand sanitizers, X amount of spray. The gyms just went in and did that their own, and so I think that for them to kind of get targeted like that wasn't very fair. I think, and that's also too why maybe I'm biased because I was affected by it, but I know a lot of my colleagues, maybe yourself, we don't have an income because we were following the rules.
Yeah.
And we still kind of we had to pay for it, and that might make you a little resentful. You know what I mean? So that's why for me, I think that added a little bit to the time spent playing video games and the alcohol consumed. But I think once that's over with, it's like, well, what can you do? What can you control? I can only control me. So that's where I try to put more energy into the online stuff and whatever, I could there, even with the outdoor classes. Even that was a whole different ball game. But it was just kind of just like, you got to adapt. And that's what I think the theme for 2020 for the trainers here in Hawaii anyway was, you got to adapt. Or I see a lot of trainers that might not even be training more, which is sad to see. You know what I mean? So
a little bit of A and a little bit of B for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think being a trainer is one of these type of jobs. Like when the getting's good, it was good.
It was good.
It was good. And it can be a very fulfilling job just on like a personal level.
Mm-hmm.
To see somebody just have a challenge and then go past what the challenge was,
Mm-hmm.
and then just make that part of your life.
Yep.
I think that's like from a teacher's point of view, that's what you want every student, and trainers are basically a type of teacher, and I see that definitely from a stress from teachers as a whole. A lot of my classmates and whatnot, they are stressed of being a teacher because this is like, it's not really what they signed up to be.
Right.
And at least maybe in the degrees of how it was supposed to be executed.
Mm-hmm.
I was never, how should I say, I from a social media standpoint, I've always been a little resenting of like what social media has almost redefined as trainers.
Mm-hmm.
And let me put this into the context of like, in order for when you started as a trainer, because let's kind of go back to this, because you started as a trainer, like you were a fitness coach.
Yes.
But a good strength of your background was from the MMA and fighting career.
Yes.
For that,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Which I think it's like you should have been an athlete as kind of a pre-qualifier.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting route because you could have easily gone to be one of the MMA coaches.
Yes.
Focus. Like, what was kind of your reasoning on that?
Oh man,
I have a story on that too.
You put me on the gun. You might have to edit this part out because this is gonna be too real. Straight up, MMA fighters don't have money, so MMA fighters are broke. That's just real. When I was still competing prior to working at UFC, I was a counselor, but I was spending like $300 plus a month on my own training. Jiu-jitsu fees, stand-up fees, my own strength conditioning, and then all the supplements to kind of, that adds up too. And you're kind of hoping that you'll get a sponsor. Like I was fortunate that near the ending of my career, I got sponsored by GNC. That helped, but prior to that, you're easily spending a couple of $100 a month, for just recovery. You know what I mean? Because you're just sore and tired all the time. And so I found that, MMA fighters don't really tend to have money. There's only a very small percentage of people that actually make it. I got lucky that I was able to work with some really high-level athletes like Max Holloway and even Tua. Kimo hooked me up with working on Tua, but that's like 2 clients out of 100, clients that I've worked with. There was kind of that choice you make as a trainer, right? It's I do it because I love it, but also I have to have enough money to continue to do what I love, and so you have to make a lot of decisions along your career. And that was one of them for me, is because I loved mixing it up with the boys. I loved doing the MMA stuff, but I didn't love that I had to go and eat cup noodle at the end of the day. And because a lot of them I did have to just volunteer my time, to help them because I saw the potential in them. You know what I mean? You want to see them get to the next level. So that's kind of, to be honest, why I didn't continue to pursue the athletic realm. Why I especially didn't continue to pursue MMA. I actually have a really close friend of mine. I trained him when he was younger. He opened up a gym in San Diego. They just got locked back down. So they went back into their purple tier, which is like a tier 1 or whatever for us, or tier 0 or whatever. And he is struggling because the MMA fighters already didn't have money. And now even more so, they're expecting to get sponsored. So they want him to hold mitts for them for free in the hopes that they'll get a payday. It's just a very, very tough market. So like I said, I'm able to, make sure that I still have a roof over my head by choosing the demographic that I did, which is health and beauty. Because even with the lockdowns, women were paying whatever to get their nails done, to get their hair done, right? And people were breaking rules. I'm not gonna snitch, but they were doing it out of their house. And I found that even in a pandemic, there are certain niches or businesses that are almost recession proof. It's so crazy because people will really save up their money to look great, even if they don't feel great on the outside, which is a whole another topic. But that's the reason, like I said, to go back to what you asked me, is that's the reason why I didn't really pursue MMA as hard, is because I found a lot of them wanted to be sponsored, or they just didn't have the money that it took to really get to the next level. Even for me, like I said, when I was competing, I was spending $300, $400, $500 plus a month on everything that would get me to the next level. But when you're fighting, you don't make nearly that much back. Even that'd be like, just to win a fight would be like $500. You know what I mean? It just didn't add up over time. So that's another reason why when I came here, G was telling me, like, hey, you can train all the time. I did one fight camp and I realized, like, hey, it's either me or you. Because when I'm training for a fight, I don't want to train anybody else. I'm cutting 30 pounds. I'm hangry. You know what I mean? I'm tired all the time. I just can't. I don't have anything left for you. You're getting my leftovers. That's not great for business. So that kind of is the reason why.
Well, I felt the same way when I did my show.
Right.
I think that bodybuilding is, I don't even want to use the word fun. But I think I can relate to, I was actually thinking about this on the drive over. Mm-hmm. It's like a lot of it is just a battle of will.
Yes.
And how you express that out. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Fighting's the same way. It's like every day you just got to put in the time, and whatever the price it is, you pay it. Uh-huh. And you find a fun of it in retrospect. Yep. I think. Yep. Same thing with bodybuilding. I remember, like, when I was in my last few weeks of getting ready for Paradise Cup and whatnot. It's like, you walk past the mirror and I was like, damn, I got, I look good. Right. But then at the same time, it's like, and all the calories are just burnt out in that thought. I'm just going to go, yep. I'm going to go lie down, because that's all the energy I got left in any of it. Yep. And I enjoy kind of the products of it, but sometimes people aren't willing to pay for the price of what it takes to get to that level. Mm-hmm. And I completely respect it. Like, you and me we're both Kamehameha boys, but I'm just like slightly one generation behind. Uh-huh. Like my martial art background, like I did some competitions, but UFC wasn't even a thing. No. That came out in '92. Yeah,
it was when I was in college. It's kind of like no weight classes. You know what I mean? You see a small guy taking out some big.
Oh, it was straight up Street Fighter.
It was. It was chicken fighting, basically, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was, I remember like somebody give me the videotape of it, and it was like, hey, watch this. I was like, is this porn?
Yeah, right.
I'm down. Yeah. So, okay, it's underground Street Fighter. Yeah, I'm cool with this. Right. And the like, I watched it, and it was a cool thing, but it wasn't the type of thing that anybody thought like I could pursue it as a job or a career. Right. I could even relate to it in the sense of bodybuilding, because that was a little bit more like the golden era of bodybuilding. That's when you're Ronnie Coleman and Dorian Yates and all those guys were like up, and they were on the front covers. And when you went to a gym, that's kind of what you expected your trainer to be, is like some huge muscled out dude. It's like, well, I guess I know what I'm doing today. Yeah. And I thought it was cool, but that it was like the attainability of what you thought it was then was on a similar token. Like, it would be more of an idea that I could possibly be a pro bodybuilder than it was for me to be like the next Chuck Norris. Yep. So, like, there was kind of a quick little turn for me, like, when I first started working here, because I wasn't like you that I was pursuing fights and things of that nature. Right. But it was kind of like I was still in this weird area of like, well, I could teach Kempo. Yeah. But the personal training thing is a little bit more new to me. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm still learning the science and whatnot. And I think maybe it could have been maybe a different, like, had I talked to the MMA director instead of the fitness director, maybe things could have been slightly different.
Right.
But
Yeah.
at the same time, I was like kind of happy with the train, because I saw you guys on a daily basis, or at least the MMA people
Yeah.
were always like,
Yeah.
you get beat the hell up.
You do. All the time.
You were hired to be a punching bag for somebody.
Basically. Yep.
And I wasn't willing to. I was like,
Yeah.
no, I'm
You
not about
hit
that.
on some really great points. Not to cut you off, so sorry. But the first one is, you take so much out of yourself by doing the mitt holding, the rolling around with the guys, that I can't do 3, 4, 5, 6 in a row like I could as far as training, somebody on form and technique for their glutes or whatever part of their body they want to work on. I could do that for longer. As I became a trainer for longer, I realized what takes the most out of me. What can I do all day? Even the body work, when I'm doing body work on people, sometimes I work on somebody and I just feel so drained after that, and then I have to go and train somebody else right after that. I couldn't do 3, 4, 5 in a row. So it's kind of just for me and being mindful of what I got out of a session as a trainer. I want to feel energized. I want to feel, motivated too, because we helped somebody get through a new PR or something like that, right? Then I can go 5, 6, 7, 8 hours in a row. But I knew that when I cut kicks, especially for somebody that can actually kick and punch hard, I gotta go and eat something, and you'll see me in the break room. You know what I mean? I gotta go and recharge.
I need my soul back.
Right, I need my soul. He just kicked it out of me. So that was also another thing. And another point that you touched on was, how like when I first came in, like, I was, fighting all that. I actually was way bigger, maybe like another 15, 20 pounds more muscle, and I had a mohawk, and I was coloring the mohawk.
I forgot about that.
I was coloring the mohawk. That was kind of my thing when I was fighting. Is I had a
forgot about
mohawk.
that. Yeah.
So as I became a trainer for longer, a lot of my clients told me like, "Oh, you're not that bad." And I go, "What do you mean?" They're like, "When I first met you, I was so scared of you. When Jamani or one of the other guys, Kimo or whoever, gave me to you, I was like, holy crap! Like, what kind of workouts is this guy gonna make me do?" They're like thinking about like the Biggest Loser, that I'm just gonna yell at them and like just kill them. So that for me was like, okay, my persona as Coach Konia and whatever, I need to soften the look. So clean cut. I got leaner. I didn't carry as much muscle. I tried to really, really kind of sit down, but I also dedicated myself last year to really growing my glutes, which I lost over the course. That was also another side. But how you're talking about the trainer should look the part. A lot of my clients said that when they chose me as their coach over another, because they got offered another coach, it's because they do look at you, and then when they're like, do you practice what you preach, like you said? So it's so funny that even how I coach and how I talk to them, I kind of soften it up a bit, because some people are still so scared of me. And a funny story, one of my clients actually thought I was gay for like 2 sessions, and then she found out that I had a girlfriend, and she was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, and I told everybody my joke is that I'm your gay best friend that's straight. You know what I mean? Because you're talking about how you're a teacher. I'm also a part-time therapist. A lot of times, especially now, we're lifting weights, but a lot of it's them telling me their stresses, what they're dealing with. Maybe these stay-at-home moms who had that time where their kids went to school to themselves, they no longer have that. And so their me time is with me. You know what I mean? So whatever, hour that they have with me is me just listening to them vent as I like hand them booty bands and dumbbells. So yeah, I just kind of want to touch on that because you were bringing up some touch points for me that I kind of want to expand on, and I'm not sure if that's going to add any value at all.
No, I think that's an important point, because that goes back to the whole COVID stress thing. I pride myself, and this is part of why I even have the podcast. And I think when I first started trying to do it, and I was listening to myself, and I recorded a few videos, like I started just sounding like a NASM, like seminar. Mm-hmm. And I think that sure, like people buy that in the value of like what that person knows.
Yeah.
And I've always taken pride in the intelligence side of it. And I'm not a dick, so it's not that,
right.
The charisma part. I definitely do relate to you, and I actually feel that the masks kind of give me a little bit of some strength with it, because like you have a pretty face.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I mean? Like
don't get me started with your hair right now, Pomai. Don't get me started with your hair, all right? let's not go there.
I still remember. I think it was it Sunny. Like she had this one video and she put over. It was like, "Baby, take your hair down" or something like that.
Yes. Yep. Your hair flowing in the air.
Yeah. Thanks. It was the hair. It's all about the hair. Nobody needs to see this. And I kind of joke around it because obviously, like, I haven't been back to Honolulu for like the past 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I opened up Mililani, opened up Kailua, and then now we're back here, and it's been kind of interesting and nice to a certain degree. I think due to social distancing, it's allowed me to like actually work out without really kind of getting bothered. Maybe call this a confession. I remember like when I was trying to get ready for the show and you're just like cardioing your brains out at like 5 in the morning with like, maybe 1,500 calories for the day, and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to do this. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And like the worst thing that I could have is like somebody's like, "Hey, coach."
Yep.
And I was like, oh, I gotta put the smile on, and I gotta be, but everything in you is just screaming at you to be hangry and everything, right?
Yep.
And and I do it, but it was like it's just like this, like throwing the car into reverse after you've been on the highway for a while, right?
You're always on stage in here. That's the thing, right?
Yeah, but that's what I've kind of enjoyed, like the ambiguity from having the mask on. Yeah, because you haven't seen my face in a while, but it's like I have Viking beards.
Oh, yeah, mine is kind of growing out too. So I'm just like, that's the thing I love about the mask, right? A lot of my girls like they don't have to put on makeup and stuff.
I got Viking beards.
Wow. Okay then. Wow,
I made a few bad wish buying decisions.
Right. So you show me mine. I gotta show me yours.
It's like what do they call it? It's like the Prince Albert. But
yeah.
Whoa, wait.
Let's turn off the camera real quick.
I miss you, bud.
Yeah, I miss you too.
But yeah, no, it kind of gives me a little bit of comfort that I can kind of just do my own thing and whatnot. I kind of enjoy a little bit of.
I love it. I actually, so funny. I got a Planet Fitness membership for the very reason that you just talked about. I have a gym here, right? Well, when I was working here, I could access at any time. But even with those I got big beats on purpose to kind of tell people like, hey, I'm working out. They don't care. I'm in the middle of a set and I see them ask me like, oh, what are you doing, coach? You're trying to get like, free tips or whatever, which is fine. But like, I only have, 50 minutes or like an hour to get in there, get my workout in and get out. So I actually was spending $20 a month, which for me was just so I could go into another gym where people don't know me and get my workout in without not being bothered, but without people asking questions. Because of course they're going to want to ask, and especially if they're one of my clients, they're going to want to talk story. I just didn't have that time back then for me to be able to do it, and it's my me time. I need to reset. We got a lot of workouts in. A lot of it was us bonding and taking time from us coaching everybody else. We were kind of sharing our workouts with each other and kind of being coaches to each other. So I totally feel you on that. And so for me, $20 a month was a great investment for me to go someplace, do my cardio, do my workouts, and nobody will really bother you, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I'm fortunate that I was grandfathered in with an old Outrigger Canoe Club membership. So they have been able to open up and change things so they can stay open in Tier 1.
Nice.
So they moved everything out into their parking lot. The staff there is just really good about keeping everything clean and whatnot. And I was always kind of known as the high school gym rat there, so it's a different vibe. People, it's like, okay, guy working out. It's not really a... So I was very fortunate for me to get there, but there was a lot of psychological stuff I had to kind of go through. I don't know about you, but kind of going back to the video game thing.
Yes.
Like I love video games just as much as like the next nerd, but the problem was like there can be, I mean, you play Call of Duty, which can be notorious for being one of the more toxic environments socially to play on. And I remember like I got back into World of Warcraft and I started playing with, and I forgot what I was doing, but there was like one day, and this was obviously during the lockdown, like just somebody just started bitching me out on something. Yeah. And I'm like, what am I paying? Like 20? I am paying a subscription for this.
Right.
To have like kids yell at me.
Yeah.
And I kind of noticed that
Yeah.
when I was playing games, it's like no matter what game I played with the online component,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of kids were staying home.
Yes.
You know, school and whatever. So,
Mhm.
and I'm talking about nationwide, right?
Yep. Yep.
And it kind of just showed me how clunky people are with communicating.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
especially in a online setting.
Yep.
You know, and when I say clunky, I mean like toxic.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, I definitely know. Definitely know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, man, can I just play like a good RPG or
Yeah.
like Final Fantasy that I don't need to what you call it? Yeah, I got really kind of tired of dealing with people. So as
Yep.
much as I enjoyed playing, you know, the games, eventually like I was like, well, this sucks because now I just feel all wound up and angry about stuff, and then nowhere to take it out too.
Gotcha.
And
yeah.
by taking it out, I don't mean like I gotta go find a fight on the street.
Right. I know what you mean.
But like you can easily convert that into physical fitness energy.
Right.
You know, and have that out, but
Yeah.
without having that out.
Yeah.
And also kind of like, what's that goal? You know. So.
Yeah.
I think that's important for a lot of people to get to, is to have a proper goal.
Yeah.
Because I feel in better, some good ways, some bad ways, COVID has made people have to reflect on their choices
Yes.
of where they're at inside life.
Yes.
And so some of us can sit there and be okay with these choices, you know, like fitness.
Mhm.
You know, it's one of those type of things that even when a doctor tells you that, hey, you really got to start losing some weight, or, you know, you're in a high blood pressure category, you're in this, like, that means that you should be doing something about it. You
Right,
know, it's
right.
not trying to talk about the feelings of whatever it is. It
Right.
requires an action. And I think that's the part that when people reflect on that, it becomes a rough thing.
Yep.
You know, sometimes in many places it takes us to get very uncomfortable in order for us to go do something about it.
Yep.
I think sometimes when we are athletes, we are used to doing things uncomfortable
Yep.
in order to get the prize that we want,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And that could be difficult things. I think it's something, it's definitely worth it, like a big discussion
Yeah.
for like high school students now. Like I couldn't imagine like being a football player that's at the top of your A game, you know, that you're supposed to be like the next Division I draft pick.
Yep.
And all of a sudden not really have a season to, like what, so does that mean you're going to get judged on what you did in your intermediate?
Right. what are you going off of? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that not just for, I mean, just for a lot of competitive
Yep.
sports. I mean, in some cases, schools like Konia and Kamehameha and Iolani have almost, I wouldn't say made a career of it, but it's like those are some of the top Division I, like volleyball schools in the nation, football schools in the nation.
Mm-hmm.
Like how do you keep that, you know? So I think that's something I see a lot with a lot of high school athletes, just kind of stewing.
Yep.
As far as like, what's that goal? The goal's gone.
Yep.
Well, the goal has definitely been postponed to a date that nobody knows what that looks like.
And I think even like a lot of the youth here, their parents are banking on them getting a scholarship for college. How do now the scouts offer a scholarship? Is it going to be based now more off your academics now, or is it going to be based off your playing ability? Like, how does that work now? Because I was training actually a few HBA student athletes out of the home in Kahala, and I was asking them like, how does the season go? And they're trying to kind of do Zoom workouts, but also like they only have very limited time to get on the field. How do you create that team chemistry? I get it if you're like playing a sport like maybe like golf or something where it's just one person,
Yeah.
but in a team aspect, like how do you create that chemistry? How do you know what I mean? Run plays, like, in, you know, and they're still figuring out. So for me, I definitely saw that, and you bring up a good point. Like, I don't know how they're gonna do it. I mean, they just had the NBA draft, right? And it's like they're going off of like how you played, almost like a year prior. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Right. Oh, well, even golf, you know, as solitary of a sport in my mind, I was never a golfer. I never seen myself as a golfer.
Yeah.
But those type of things aren't even on the table from an ILH or an OIA standpoint. At least from the sources of people that I know that are, you know, obviously trying to get some of those things going. It's a very difficult answer, considering that, swimming was arguably my biggest sport.
Yep.
And on paper, you could say, well, it's outdoors, so that highly limits the amount of COVID. It already is a sport that deals with lanes that could be separated,
right,
from everybody. But then you still have to take into account, okay, that makes sense if you're only maybe having 2 schools go at it. But typically swim meets were like these monster events,
right,
bringing everybody from every high school. They all have tents that get crammed around like this one little pool deck, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like a lot of these other logistics just don't work, and that's like, okay, so the interactions with the coaches and the athletes, you're multiplying that up by like, what, I don't know, 15, 20 people a team. Multiplied that by like 30 different schools. Who knows? It's a huge number.
Right.
It's a huge number that doesn't have a lot of funding and finances to answer a lot of the issues that they're bringing up as they start, doing a deeper dive into it. So, yeah, it's a weird thing.
Yep.
I think on one side of it, us as trainers, we always exist somewhere in between there because we complement whatever the athletics that this person could have as a goal. You know what I mean? Like, you could be a booty coach, but I mean, that still means that you're like a track coach. You're still
basically, right? Basically,
there's obviously crossovers
for sure
with all of this. But it's like people should be. I feel that people need to just redirect their goals and like, let's just talk about being healthy first.
Yep.
But with the potentiality of being able to do the other stuff whenever that trigger gets pulled.
Yes.
Yep. Because when you get that trigger pulled, it's kind of like, do I start training now? No, your game's tomorrow.
Right. Yep.
That's how that works.
Yep.
So.
Yep. So as I say, going back to adapt, I mean, we just have to be very more adaptable, and that's just how it has to be right now, you know what I mean? The same with the trainers and then the athletes, you know what I mean? It's just being able to do that. So, I think you hit it the nail right on the head on that one. It's just like, are you going to sit at home and continue to do these things? Like, for example, first lockdown, I kind of did a lot of that. But going into the second one, right, I kind of had a feeling, oh my gosh, it looks like we're going to lock down again. I didn't want to repeat the mistakes I made in the first one. The first one was like, I didn't know what to do. I was kind of like shooting from the hip. The in between, the few months, like the 3 or 4 months in between the 2 lockdowns, I really prepared in case there was another one. And I think that that for me was kind of the things that I was proud that I did for myself, was like, hey, you didn't know what to do the first one, but if you still don't know what to do the second, now we have a problem. You know what I mean? You need to have learned something from that. So going into this one, I think I was a little bit better prepared for it, as far as creating those communities, right? In between, I made sure that they had each other's social medias, they were, like I said, like each other's pictures, and, even throughout the second one, just kind of keeping that communication with them, starting group chats where, in the online training community, they could applaud for each other, cheer each other on, post, before and after pictures. I think that's kind of what people are missing, and even when going to the video games, I know you don't like the toxicity of it, but for me, that's my way to keep in contact with my friends that I saw, every weekend.
For sure.
Those are the guys that I'm playing with on a team. So yeah, I'll have a little kid insult me or my mother, but I kind of just like, I just ignore them because I miss the fact that I can't see them in person. So we would even do Zoom. We'll be doing Zoom as we play with each other. I think that's why, gaming platforms like Twitch are going off, because people would just miss seeing an actual person. So we would actually have our phones out and just be watching each other playing video games.
Doesn't even Max Holloway, isn't he a big gamer as well?
Big time, yeah. So I actually just played against him last weekend, I think it was.
What?
Yeah, we're just trash talking each other. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So I think it's that aspect of it is that I just miss hearing each other's voices and kind of trash talking in a friendly way. But I think that's just a way to connect, because like I said, that very first month, it was literally me and my girlfriend in the home for like a month. We weren't even going out to really get food because we understand the COVID thing. I have a niece that's, less than a year old, and I have grandparents that are like 80, 90.
Yeah.
I was getting Uber Eats to the house. That's how really we didn't leave the house, Yeah. So I felt very isolated. And for me, being around people all the time, I'm actually a learned extrovert, or maybe even an ambivert. Like, I'm very kind of like you.
I'm not
like,
familiar with that one.
Oh, so I introverted, like I don't like big crowds really. Like if you see me actually teaching huge UFC classes, I'm not the strongest at that. G actually thought I was gonna be very, very loud and very whatever. You know my coach said I don't really yell actually. I actually excel more in smaller groups or one-on-one. I just really like to make the friendships and the relationships. I'm strong with that. If I don't really know you, I'll easily disappear in a crowd. You know what I mean? I'm not extroverted where I'm like, hey, like I'm the life of the party. I've never been that guy. You know me, right? I'm very much, but I've learned to really go out of my way when I'm on the floor. Hey, how you doing? Like, be Mr. Aloha. That took time for me to learn. That's not naturally in me to go out and try to talk to new people I don't know. But if I know you very well, good luck shutting me up. You know what I mean? As you can see, right? You know what I mean? That's what I'm talking about there. I'm introverted, but I'm learned extroverted. So I guess the ambivert is kind of like a mix between the two because it's like, hey, I want to spend a lot of time with you, but then okay, go away now. I want to go home and go back to my bubble. It's basically how I live. So for me, I was missing that aspect of that connection, and I would even find myself being like, I wonder how so and so is doing. You know what I mean? I'm used to seeing her every Monday at 7 p.m. for how many years? I wonder if she's okay. And just those thoughts, you know what I mean? And even the text message, not quite the same. And then it's like, kind of like where those like, hey, how you been? Well, good. I've been in my house all day. How have you been? Good. And then like, what do you talk about after that? You know what I mean? It's like, there's not anything to talk about.
Don't you find like when people ask like, it's always one of those, I wouldn't say loaded questions, but it's always one of those type of things that like, when you're asking somebody, it's more like a type of greeting rather than the honest question. Right. Which it can be. I don't know. I think because I can start contextualizing stuff so much that sometimes annoys me when somebody asks a question because it was like, and one side of it, I think everybody right now has whatever your life was at prior to this. I haven't met anybody that it was like, life is absolutely amazing. I've made my first three billion in this or whatever it is.
Right. Yeah.
Like we all got kind of kicked down a notch from wherever things are. And I think like when we're talking about the stress, it's a really legit thing. Even for me, it's like I saw what the business was, and not just business, but just life in general was before this. And I don't know what that happiness quotient is from then to now. But I think people in general just have, like, things are just lower, and we are always just trying to make the best of it for wherever it is. I think as a trainer, we are always trying to push it forward as much as we can in the aspects of where we kind of stand in authority with it. This was not the best mask right there.
I'm sure you'll get a podcast mask soon, I'm sure.
Well, I thought about it. I was over at Walmart the other day, and I saw that they had one of those atmosphere. Remember those old things that like do not work? Right. So I was like, of course it's in Walmart.
Of course.
What you call it. But I did think of getting it because that large muzzle area
kind of stays there, right?
Well, not just that. I could probably fit the lavalier mic
through there
inside of it.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that.
And then rip out whatever the stupid air gauges that they have as far as limiting airflow. To me, that's always kind of a thing with the masks as a whole that I find a little odd from like the Ken and Karen statements. It was like, oh well, I have asthma and what you call it, and I can't breathe.
Right.
And I relate it to when I was out of shape and trying to come back to the gym. I told our director, it was like, give me a few weeks. Number one, I need to just train myself socially as well as physically. To try to do this very physical job. And so I started just biking around Kapiolani Park. And so the first time I went around, it was like one lap and I was dying. I was like, oh, we took a bunch of steps backwards. This is not good. But I was like, did it again the next day, and then I had constructed like these weird masks that had like multiple filters on it. Not in trying to make like an atmosphere mask, but the reality was it's like, this is conditioning. I'm out of shape. I just need to condition myself to it. And I kind of feel on one side when people come back to the gym and this is their first time here, can we all say that the gym, if we can, except for the fact that the literal fact that the gyms haven't been open for 5 months for a lot of people, like you're out of shape. You're out of shape. Let's take that for where it is. So whatever it is, with or without the mask on, it was already going to be a challenge. And you know, and I know, if it was somebody's first day and it was like your starter session with them or whatever, it's like, okay, let's just go do a warm up. And then they're like, this is the warm up.
Yep.
What's going on?
Yep.
This is ridiculous.
Yep. Exactly.
And I was like, well, it's hard. It's hard. It's all hard, you know. So, but what do we do as coaches? We help people out wherever they're at. We meet them for where they're at, and we encourage them. And then it's like, catch your breath, give you a few more seconds of break, and then we'll just go on.
Yep.
I think that's kind of like a social stress, and I'm not blaming all the Karen-isms on that. Of all the names, like, people like, how do we come up with Karen?
Don't ask me. I have no idea.
Yeah, I just always find that one a little bit a weird one. I don't know too many Karens. I think I can maybe name 3 off the top of my head.
I have an auntie, and that's it. I think.
You have a Karen.
I have one
You have
that
one
I can think
Karen.
of.
And I'm sure she's a beautiful and nice lady.
She is actually. She's not actually a Karen.
Right. So, I just always thought it was like, it's a weird thing. Like, I don't have any, not trying to be an apologist, but it was like, I don't know how many Karens I actually know or friends with. Or even Ken. Like, I don't think, like...
I think there's one member from my Kelly whose name is Ken, but I don't really know too many outside of that.
No, but like when like, if you were ever trying to tease somebody and you called somebody a Ken, you were referring to like the Barbie doll Ken,
Barbie doll, yeah.
Like reference. It was like, it's not the same type of an insult.
It's not. It's really not. Yeah.
So anyhow, you know, let's kind of close this up.
Yeah.
What would be one advice? So since we were talking about like the things that we're not hearing from, you know, official sources like the government or whatnot, what's one bit of advice that you can kind of share to people just as a whole right now?
I think what I saw from this year is that people are scared of a virus or a disease or whatever, but we're being told wear a mask, stay at home, stay away from people. That speaks nothing to, like I said, about, you know, working out, eating the right foods, and if you're staying at home, you tend to not eat the right foods or drink the right, you know, drinks, and also too from a mental aspect, you know, like I said, talking about you can't see your friends, you can't have, you know, do the jobs or the things that you're passionate about really. I think that takes a toll on you, and that can be a downward spiral. You felt it, I felt it, and my thoughts is, it doesn't have to be COVID. It could be diabetes. It could be high blood pressure.
For sure.
It could be anything.
For sure.
If you're telling us to stay home, we're not gonna be able to fight off any of these diseases. It doesn't have to be COVID. It could be anything. So I think the message has to be different, that we need to work out and we need to eat the right foods, because who knows if there'll be another disease like COVID or even just a common flu. The people that are higher risk are the ones that are not working out. The people that, you know, are obese. They have, we've learned in NASM, they have so much of a higher percentage of you know, of it being something where they die from. So I think instead of us being fearful of things, it's kind of controlling what we can control. I can control what I put in my body. I can control whether I'm going to go and work out, or even if I'm going to do 1,000 push-ups. I may not be happy about it, but I'm not doing it for the happiness. I'm doing it because I'm doing it for my health. So for me, that was always the biggest takeaway from this year for me, and something that I instill in my friends and my clients and, you know, my family is, hey, if there was ever a time for you to maybe prioritize health, because the fact that you told me, you know, a year ago that you didn't have time, you got nothing but time. So that's no longer an excuse for you. If I take that off the table, was that really the excuse, or was it the fact that you really didn't want to work out? Because now you have to be honest with yourself and tell me, you know what, Justin, I really don't want to be in pain. I really don't want my butt to be sore. Cool, we'd always leave it at that. But like I said, I think that that's a huge message for me, and like I said, even for, you know, my parents that are getting older, I'm trying to tell them, like, hey, I know you guys didn't really prioritize your health, but if there was ever a time where you should, because, you know, people are passing or whatever, let's get it done now. So that's kind of my biggest thing, and something that I'm trying to do my best to share with people. And that's why, you know, even from a social media standpoint, my videos were a little bit different from yours. I wasn't so organized and didn't have the charts. I just wanted to teach you something very, very simple that you could do at home and you could replicate. You know, with all the TikToks and all the other stuff, I can't keep up with it, to be honest. People's attention span is so short. It's like 10, 15 seconds for a reason. because that's how long people are going to give you before they click on the next video. So I want to kind of just give you free value where like, hey, I can learn how to do, a squat properly or a hip thrust properly or whatever it is. Common mistakes you're doing and real quick like that, because I know their attention span is so short. But hopefully I gave you something that you can practice at home, and then you'll feel confident that you can do more. And then hopefully you'll catch the bug, or you'll at least see results. That's our goal, right? To give them some sort of success early on so that they'll continue with it. I want to kind of just show you like, hey, you can do it. You know what I mean? And get them to hopefully start a fitness journey. But that was my big thing, is that, it doesn't have to be COVID. It could be anything. And if you're not working out, you're not eating the right foods, it doesn't need to be COVID to take you out. So
that is a very, very, very good point, I think, on a lot of things. And especially now that we're coming into the holiday season, we always talk about, which I'm intently looking at, like, what is this holiday season gonna be like? Because we know as coaches, this is like, okay, well, hopefully my business and I got keeping enough people in the loop to stay consistent. But I mean, that's almost been kind of like the battle cry for us throughout all of this, right?
Right.
So I'm curious to see how that kind of plays out.
Me too.
But that definitely, the reason why I bring that up is I think a lot of times the holiday season, in my opinion, signifies when people feel like they can put like this whole thing on pause, this whole health and lifestyle thing, and then I'm just gonna leave this here and I'm gonna be debaucherous. Well, debauchery is not quite the word to describe Thanksgiving, though I don't judge.
That's how you do it. To your own.
Yes, that's how you like to do it with the turkey. I'm cool.
Right. Yeah.
Don't care.
Yep.
But the point is that it's when people like. We know what happens on the tail end of it, right? Because that's where we get the whole New Year's resolution bunch.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like right now, I think with COVID, it's like a constant state of New Year's resolution.
It is. That's what I was exactly thinking about. Like, is January 1st, is the New Year's gonna still be a New Year's? Because you think about it, it's not a typical calendar anymore. If you're not really working, a Sunday is the same as a Thursday, right? It doesn't matter what day of the week. In fact, on the first lockdown, I started to forget what day of the week it was because all the days started to blend, right? Because you're doing the same stuff over and over, which is pretty much nothing. So, like I said, then that goes back to my first lockdown. I didn't do much. I kind of regretted I didn't do more. So going to second lockdown is like, are you going to start your own business? Are you going to chase new goals? You know what I mean? Like I said, those things you say you didn't have time for. Like, for example, when I told my girlfriend I was going to, take some stuff to Goodwill and clean up the back and take out the trash, even whatever it is. I got nothing but time now to take on these projects, so it's what I was doing with my time. Yeah. So is this New Year's going to be a typical New Year's where people are setting goals all of a sudden, or should they have been doing it now, kind of thing? I'm curious to see.
Yeah,
as are we going to get a flood
you
of
and I
clients?
know already what the answer that we would want people to do, and that's why it's
yes.
I want you to share what you want what you want to share on that. I mean, my answer isn't really going to kind of be any different for you.
Yeah.
I would encourage, though, from the social aspect, and this is part of the reason, like, one of many reasons why I'm so glad to talk to you again, is that I feel a lot of things right now are kind of tied up in bad communication. And even though as much as we talk about social media and staying connected, we also realize how bad of a tool it is. And there's something about like literal interpersonal communication, like as we are right now, even though we're looking at each other in our eyes, but it's like how much more of a necessity that needs to be as far as like trying to get and talk your point across. I think when you talk about like short attention spans, that's definitely something I know from a psychological standpoint. Definitely teachers are dealing with that as far as generations are going forward on that. But at the same time, it's like I have sometimes a hard time trying to cater to that, because then I feel like I'm coddling it.
Got you.
Versus like the reality of, and this kind of goes from open format podcasts.
Yes.
Versus let me, because I could have started this off and it's like, hey Justin, I'm going to give you a few questions I'm going to answer from here. Yeah. What's your take on this? We only got 10 minutes that I got to fit into Instagram, and it's funny that even 10 minutes is too long. I can't do something in 10 minutes, So I appreciate like a lot of feedback, and I get that from some other people I've done what you call it, but there are also some truths that I like to kind of stick to my guns for, you know, because I think that we probably wouldn't have this robust conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
If we just didn't let things like play out.
Yeah, and then even as we talk, like for example, something else just popped to my mind that I want to share. I know we're trying to wrap up, but something that I noticed with the Instagrams and the other social medias is people are not doing their due diligence or doing their research on who they're really following or whose workouts they're doing. With the online training, I did notice that it's a very saturated market right now, especially with, you know, the lockdowns, people not going to gyms. So I'm competing against people with 1 million followers, 100,000 followers, whatever it may be. I've actually bought programs from certain influencers to see what it is that they're actually giving to the masses. And, you know, to be honest, as a personal trainer, like you and I, we would look at that and be like, this makes no sense. Like, why would you put these exercises together like that? Like, what is even the point of you putting them together? It makes no logical sense for me as a trainer. I'm like, what kind of goal is this that you have in mind?
Very cookie cutter. Yeah.
And I know that women or men or whatever are buying these programs because they want to look like the person selling it. First of all, you don't have their genetics. But secondly, they don't have the background or the reps or certification. You know how many reps we've had to put in to figure out the way that we program? My programming is different than yours, but it works for our clientele. You know, you're super detail oriented with your tracking and everything like that. I'm not as much, right? And so we all have our strengths, but that works for us and that works for our clientele. So for somebody to go and try to prescribe that to the masses, I'm seeing that people are honestly going to be wasting their money. I mean, of course, if you're doing nothing and sitting on the couch, you're going to see some sort of results initially. But if you want to not plateau and even worse, regress because you're no longer, right? Because that's one of the worst things. You feel like you're not getting the results that you want and you're paying money. You're just like, screw it, it's Thanksgiving, I'm going to eat it and let it go. Then you feel even more depressed because you saw how great you looked and then you lost it. I've noticed that with clients over the year, right? If they have like an injury or they go and travel and they come back after a long time, that's probably the worst for them because they're thinking about how they used to be and the kind of weight they used to lift with me. So that's kind of a caution that, or something I learned, is because I always want to see, okay, what else is out there? Maybe I can learn from other coaches. There are amazing coaches, don't get me wrong. There's coaches that have, 10, 20 years on me, and I look at their product and I'm like, oh, that's amazing. And I learn from them, like, okay, I need to add more value to my online clients. But then, honestly, the ones that I see doing the most sales, because you can see, right, they're very, very popular on Instagram and whatever, their workouts are honestly not that great from a personal training point of view. And I feel like I kind of have an obligation to let people know that, like, you should do your research on who you're following, who you're purchasing from, because I think there are coaches that might only have 100 followers, but that's because they're so busy in the gym training real clients that they don't have that social online media presence. That's something to think about too. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what I want to share, because you're talking about, attention span, 10-minute stuff. I honestly learned a lot of that stuff from my influencer clients, but I always had to keep in mind that I still have to hone my craft. I can't just throw out random workouts to people at the top of my head. I'm actually using real workouts that I would use with my clients in real life. And if you want a little bit more, I can tailor it personally to you. You know what I mean? But when I buy programs from these people on YouTube or whatever, it's literally look like you went and took a bunch of random workouts and just threw them on a piece of paper and packaged it.
You know what? I actually, let's save that for another discussion. I really actually do want to talk to you again.
Yep.
And maybe we can make that a focus, because I really feel a lot of the same ways. I did, like, I got a few apps, like, when I got really frustrated, and I was like, oh, maybe, for me, it wasn't so much about the programming, it was just more about, okay, show me what you can do to keep me more accountable.
Yes.
And I even consider myself a pretty accountable person, like when I grind myself in.
Yep.
But it was like, well, this is BS. It was basically some little boxing timer that said, okay, you're going to be doing jumping jacks for this long. And I was like, well, wait a minute. You didn't ask me anything about, like, what's going on. Do I have any joint problems? Do I have any back problems? I remember a few clients, mostly starter sessions. I shouldn't say clients, that I did, and somebody would say, like, somebody they endorsed off of YouTube or some other trainer.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, I follow along with so and so's workout. Do you think that's a good routine to do?
Uh-huh.
And I was like, no.
Right.
I mean, logically, it's kind of like, why am I going to give my stamp of approval for somebody else's thing? Or let me correctly phrase it, why am I going to put my liability on somebody else's program that, is like, well, Coach Pomai told me to go do this, so this is... I was like, no, I didn't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's the thing about too is like I don't know these influencers personally. Like it's another thing if you're like asking me about so and so that I worked with. Like for example, if they ask me about your workouts or Coach Jonathan workouts, somebody that I've spent years side by side. Oh, should I do that? Of course, because I've seen their workouts in real life. But for me to like vouch for somebody that has 1,000 likes, like I don't know what their workout looks like. And then especially when I buy it, I'm like, even more so I don't endorse it. You know what I mean? So I totally get it. It's because, like I said, they're banking on the amount of likes or the amount of engagement that they get on their post. But that's like me going into a doctor because he has the most amount of likes. Like, how safe do you think I'm going to film it in his hands? You know what I mean? I don't know if people even care these days about it. You know what I mean? So that's like I said, I know there's a whole other topic. I know we could spend another hour or so on it, but as you're talking to me, that was something that I really realized during this last break is like, I was looking at the competition, right, or with the other trainers, and I was like, wow, like, I don't know how you came up with this workout. Like, it makes no logical sense. Like, I don't even see what the end goal would be of doing, especially in that order. Like, it makes no sense, So.
Yeah, no, I think sometimes, I won't go on a deeper side of this, but I think sometimes it's where people are looking for validation of what they're doing rather than like what's the actual productive next step to get you to the direction of where you need to go.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'll just leave it at
yeah.
I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. We could go on for hours if we start going down that rabbit
just
hole.
Leave it at that.
For sure.
Gosh, it's been so good catching up with you, bud.
That's awesome.
I don't know what your work schedule is looking like, but let's definitely like schedule out another time to what you call it.
Yep. Text me.
But yeah, so good to see you.
Air hugs. All right.